Good evening, folks. I wanted to make a short video about being persistent with your goals in life in general. And I boil things down into three things: or don't compromise, respect your boundaries, and number three, don't lower your standards. And what I mean by don't compromise, say for instance, when you're in a goal, for instance, if you're in a wanting to get into a relationship with somebody, I my thing is when you don't compromise. Say that person doesn't, you start texting and then they kind of ghost you. You don't hear from them. Then don't text them back. Just let things happen. I think people do this and they kind of compromise their values and standards. And for instance, another one is there's the old cliche, you're known by the company you keep. So in that case, you don't want to hang out with people. For instance, if you work for a organization that helps other people, but you hang out with people that smoke weed, do drugs, you're compromising your standards. So in this case, you don't want to compromise your standards, and you want to actually, in that case, you want to raise your standards. So I was telling somebody yesterday that called me up and was asking me questions. I said, you don't want to compromise your standards. If you're trying to solve a problem, you shouldn't run from that problem, but you can't say, well, my friend said they're going to pick me up and then they're going to take me somewhere where I can get things done. That there again, you're compromising and you really should compromise. If you want to change something, you have to take what I call the cliche draw a line is in the sand and not compromise. Another example is you don't want to date somebody that smokes, then you don't want to go out on a date with somebody that does smoke. So in other words, this is you don't want to compromise. The second one is respect your boundaries. And what I mean by respect your boundaries, if, for instance, if you don't like somebody that curses a lot, then you're hanging out with them and they're starting cursing a lot, then you have to respect your boundaries and say, I really don't like that and I don't appreciate that. Or somebody that, for instance, is not very uh, cultural savvy, then and they make crude jokes about minorities. There again, you have to respect your boundaries. You're not necessarily you don't have to, like we were talking about, don't compromise or lower your compromise. In essence, what you're doing is you're respecting your boundaries. For instance, uh, if you're working on, for instance, I belong to Toastmasters. I work for a nonprofit, and I've got a meeting on, I believe, on how to be a more effective mentor next week. The issue becomes not necessarily this is a meeting I set aside, but if something that would come up, I would have to tell somebody, I'm sorry, I've got this meeting I wanted to attend mentoring. Because what you're doing is you're respecting your boundaries, and especially on education. And then finally, folks, the third thing here is don't lower your standards. I've seen a lot of people, and I was talking to somebody early this morning that called me up about some issues that they were having with their significant other. I said, there again, you don't want to lower your standards. If you want a better life, you have to keep high standards. If you want to change things in life, you have to assess yourself and say, how am I going to increase my standards? For instance, uh, I'm not content, even though that I'm content of the job I have. I'm still not content where financially I am, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So, in other words, I'd like to increase my salary. So, my goal is just work my butt off, stay focused at work, do what they ask me to do, and basically follow directions and follow orders, and then you'll move up the chain. And since they want me to make sure I get PhD in psychology to them. So in other words, what I'm doing here is I'm not lowering my standards. Another thing is I'm single. Right now I'm trying to get everything else done with my psychology. I started a new job in June. So I'm still learning from the job. But to bring somebody into that circle may cause some problems because, number one, I got to be concentrating on what I'm doing and getting things done. So in essence, I told myself once this is all done, then I'll look at that. There again, I don't want to lower my standards, but that also coincides with respecting my boundaries as well. So, in essence, when I talk about that, it's like okay, when I talk about not lowering your standards, I would want to date somebody on a professional level, not necessarily somebody that works at McDonald's or is a cashier at Walmart. Not saying that they're bad people or they represent a lifestyle. It's just that with me being a professional PhD, in essence, what I would be doing is lower my standards. Anyway, folks, these are some food for thoughts, and hopefully sometime this weekend I will post another video. Please like and subscribe at the bottom there. I just published a journal article about first I got the book Don't Buy Your Lottery Ticket, but also did something about casinos in Native American reservations, which is now available on Amazon as well. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at bthomasmillerpsych@gmail.com, as it's spelled B Thomas Miller Psych, PSYCH @gmail.com. Anyway, folks, have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.